Join us and discover beautiful beaches, rugged landscapes, pretty towns, desolate mountain ranges that sweep down to stunning lakes, unique architecture, history and folklore, no shamrocks, no shillelaghs, and definitely no shenanigans, just naked Ireland. Can you believe it? There are now 200 Naked Ireland videos out there, and this film is a special compilation of some of those. And a massive thank you to you if you've watched, subscribed, liked or commented. I really appreciate your support. And I'm kicking off my stroll down memory lane with this video of the incredible Giant's Causeway on the north coast of County Antrim. There's nowhere quite like it in the world. And do you remember the sheep-infested videos that I made on Achill Island in the west of Ireland? There were 3 films in all, as there was just so much to document. And I'll never forget my subterranean journey to the centre of the earth. Well, not quite the centre, but Marble Arch Caves in County Fermanagh are truly stunning. And this beautiful waterfall is in the middle of Glenara Forest Park, again in County Antrim. But the waterfall is only a small part of the beauty of this place. Watch the film and see the rest of it. And check out the majesty of the famous Cliffs of Moher in County Clare. Breathtaking. Here you can see the Mourne Mountains as they sweep down to the sea in this shot of the beach at Murlough Nature Reserve in County Down. And we visited the Cliffs of Moher just a moment ago. These are the Slieve League Cliffs in County Donegal. Every bit as spectacular. Castlewellan Forest Park in County Down has beautiful woodland, a lake and a baronial castle. Beautiful walks at any time of the year. Or if walking isn't your thing, check out this road trip up the Antrim coast. Ireland's Côte d'Azur. And this big boulder on Clockmore, as we say in Irish, near Rostrevor in County Down, was thrown here by local giant Finn McCool, and that's a fact. And then we travel right over to the far west coast of Ireland to enjoy another road trip, this time through the Connemara countryside with its gorgeous lakes and mountains. And Tullymore Forest Park in Newcastle, County Down presents us with the most incredible nature trail. You need your sensible shoes for that. And speaking of hiking shoes, why not take a dander along North County Down's coastal walk, with Belfast Lough washing against the shore. But if bracing, isolated countryside is your thing, then on top of Horn Head in County Donegal will certainly blow the cobwebs off. Before I talk about cities, towns and villages, please take a second now to like the video if it's been enjoyable or informative so far. My films on Ireland's towns and villages have been some of the most popular, and this one of beautiful Ennis in County Clare really struck a chord with the viewers. And if you remember, here's the spectacular monument to Daniel O'Connell, who hailed from around these parts. And this picturesque scene from my video on Strangford and Portaferry in County Down looks like it's straight off a postcard. This body of water is the Narrows, which flows from Strangford Lough out to the sea. And just look at the colours here. This is the town of Kinsale in County Cork, a beautiful place right on the sea. This place will put the colour in your cheeks. Make sure you take plenty of photos. But for a more muted experience, you could visit the little village of Kearney in County Down, once a fishing village, now populated by tenants of the National Trust who own the place. And this idyllic village of Rostrevor, again in County Down, is stunning, not just for its Georgian houses, but also for this little river which runs through what's called the Fairy Glen. And Wexford, the county town on the east coast of Ireland, is a place full of history. And this morning full of bikes too, it seems. Interesting pub there. Then you can inspect the fishing fleet over in the port of Killybegs in Donegal. Make sure you pick up some fresh fish when you're there. And this rainy nighttime visit to the town of Westport in County Mayo was very popular with viewers. Perhaps they enjoyed seeing the town from this different perspective. And the incredible Georgian architecture of Armagh City is so worth a walk around. You've got to visit this fairly unassuming place, which isn't much on the tourist trail. And this guy, our poet W.B. Yeats, loved this town of Sligo so much that he adopted it as his home. Some lovely shop fronts here too. And here we have Ballina in County Mayo, with its river looking very high, a popular place for fishing. Now the town of Clifton in County Galway has a number of very special claims to fame, this monument alluding to one of them. Watch the film to hear the rest. In any case, it's a beautiful town. Newport in County Mayo is situated on the gorgeous Black Oak River, and found the town's history fascinating, but it also has links to the film star Princess Grace of Monaco. And some would say this is the pièce de résistance. We end this section on towns, cities and villages with a walk around the beautiful city of Galway. Much written and sung about, it's truly a place that everyone needs to visit at some point. So just before we start our section on some of Ireland's beaches, please make sure you're subscribed. I'm guessing you already are, but it really helps the channel grow if I could just convince you to hit that big red button. And hit the bell icon too to get an alert when I post, which is only once a week. Anyway, what better way to start this section on beaches than with this view of White Park Bay in North Antrim. This is a beach very close to Giant's Causeway, so you could perhaps visit both places on the same day, though that's a lot to take in. And I have to say that one of my favourite beaches is Knockalla Beach in County Donegal on the western shores of Lough Swilly. There's good camping nearby as well for those who like that kind of holiday. And here's where I got caught by a wave. Or this place, this is Fintra Beach, again in Donegal. It's so hard to beat the beaches in Donegal. It's just a place that's so unspoilt. You'll just need to get the weather, but of course these places look stunning all year round, just pack a good jumper. And with that, we head over to the east of Ireland to visit the spectacular strand that's Brittas Bay in County Wicklow. Look at this shot, just as I was losing the light. Fantastic. And bouncing back to Donegal, I found this little beach next to Marble Hill Strand. I was fascinated with the lovely little house that overlooks the water, and I can't stop imagining what it would be like to live there. But for a more traditional seaside break, you could try somewhere like Galway's Salt Hill with its long promenade. This place has long been a favourite of Irish families for holidays with its amusements and hotels. I didn't catch it on a particularly nice day, but rain is something you have to accept as a possibility if you're holidaying in Ireland. And finally, in this section on beaches, this big fella introduces us to Portneuf Beach, again in County Donegal. It's a vast expanse of sand, typical of Donegal. I'm going to profile some of the museums I've covered on Naked Ireland now, but remember, always feel free to comment on the videos. It's always brilliant to hear your views and experiences, and I respond to everyone. We're starting this section with this amazing piece of architecture, the Ulster Museum in Belfast's Botanic Gardens. This place has exhibits of all sorts, from Celtic artefacts to Egyptian mummies, as well as a good collection of art. Or if you prefer something more nautical, There's HMS Caroline, a 1914 Class C light cruiser, moored permanently now in Alexander Dock in Belfast. It's possible to get on board and explore, so maybe you'd like to try this out. And not far from Caroline is the incredible building that houses the Titanic Museum. Of course, I'm sure you already know that the Titanic was built right here in this dock. So you've seen the blockbuster movie, why not pass through this exhibition and learn all about the world's most famous ship? The building itself is marvellous. And when you're done, the Ulster Folk Museum is only a little bit down the coast. This place shows how generations of Irish people have lived in days of old. You could easily spend a full day in this place. There's some fascinating buildings and exhibits. And it's a perfect family day out. And then across the road, there's the Ulster Transport Museum, equally interesting and full of amazing cars, buses, trains, motorbikes and aeroplanes, perfect for petrol heads of all sorts and all ages. And before I move on to reflect on some of the Naked Ireland videos focusing on castles and heritage sites, remember that you can find the full Naked Ireland video online of anything you've seen here so far. Go to the Naked Ireland channel and check out everything that interests you. So our first trip in this heritage section is to Derry's 17th century walls, which I walk around in their entirety in the film, and we'll see some of the city's landmarks from this perspective. And then it's on to Galway to appreciate the ancient fortifications of that city, which exist nowadays only in a few places, including inside this supermarket. Carrickfergus Castle in County Antrim is a Norman fortification built by John de Courcy in 1177. And this is Donegal Castle. I'll not bother saying what county it's in, see if you can guess. If your name's O'Donnell, the chances are your ancestors came from here. And these are the beautiful grounds of Dublin Castle. And of course, it's been an important government complex, British and then Irish after the treaty in 1921. And if you want the gift of the gab, you'll need to come here to Blarney Castle in County Cork to kiss the famous stone. Elizabeth Fort in the heart of Cork City has a fascinating and turbulent history. It also happens to have some amazing views from the top too. And the 13th century King John's Castle in Limerick on the banks of the mighty Shannon has had an impressive renovation in recent years, including a new high-tech visitors centre. Glendalough in County Wicklow is the site of a 6th century monastery, and it was one of the most scholarly places in Europe in its heyday. And on the banks of Lough Neagh in Ulster, you can find this old monastic settlement dating from 590 and which contains Ireland's tallest high cross, the Ardbow Cross. And our own St Paddy is reputed to be buried here in Downpatrick. This stone marks the spot. But even older tombs exist all over Ireland. This one at the Giant's Ring near Belfast dates from 2700 BC. That predates the Egyptian pyramids. And Sligo Abbey, in the town of the same name, is a Romanesque church from 1253. Again, it's had a colourful history. But this place, the Rock of Cashel in County Tipperary, is a must-see. It was the seat of the kings of Munster, and St Patrick himself reputedly came here. It's a place of striking ambience, and you can't help be moved by a visit to its impressive cluster of medieval buildings. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Now for younger viewers, I thought it would be good to profile some of Ireland's important universities. Many people encounter Ireland for the first time through their studies after all. but these places are of general interest and very beautiful. This is Queen's University in Belfast, and we're looking at the beautiful Lanyon building. The university has around 300 degree programmes on offer, and it's situated in South Belfast in what has become known as the University Quarter, one of the most dynamic, youthful and integrated parts of the city. Former President of Ireland Mary McAleese went here, as did Nobel Prize winning poet Seamus Heaney. The actor Liam Neeson also was a past student of Queen's. And this is what you'll look like during exam time. It's all very beautiful. University College Galway is an equally beautiful campus. In fact, it's situated alongside the city's River Corrib, and so that lends a special beauty to the grounds. Again, like Queen's in Belfast, this place has wonderful buildings and surroundings, which much makes student life here so much better. Notable alumni from here include the current Irish President Michael D. Higgins, who was also a past member of the faculty, and former Taoiseach Enda Kenny. This is nice. Trinity College almost needs no introduction. This place was founded way back in 1592 on a charter from Queen Elizabeth I. It's therefore Ireland's oldest university and was modelled on Oxford and Cambridge. I think you can see the resemblance. It's right in the heart of Dublin and it's popular with tourists. The list of famous people who studied here includes the likes of Nobel Prize winning author Samuel Beckett and former President of Ireland Mary Robinson. It seems that every university has to produce an Irish president. It's also the location of the important illustrated Irish manuscript, the Book of Kells, created around 800 AD. University College Cork now has a lot to live up to after having visited those other universities, but it can rise to the challenge. Just like Queen's in Belfast and UCG in Galway, it was founded as one of the Queen's colleges in 1845. Again, it has a very beautiful campus, which in this case is situated alongside Cork's River Lee. It's only fair, as we did with the others, to list a few notable past students. Once again, it's impressive reading, but actor Cillian Murphy and presenter Graham Norton are notable. And from the world of politics, it's produced both Taoiseachs Micheál Martin and Jack Lynch. Now occasionally on Naked Ireland I feature a film that focuses on the troubles in Northern Ireland or its legacy. Here's a film about Derry's Bogside, a place where on the 30th of January 1972, British paratroopers shot 26 unarmed Catholic civilians, killing 14 of them. The British government apologised 38 years later. This is the wall that still to this day separates Catholic and Protestant communities in West Belfast. It has consistently been a flashpoint for violence over the years. These are the political murals on the Lower Newtonards Road in Loyalist East Belfast. And these are political murals on the nationalist Lower Falls. These have since been overpainted, which we'll see in a moment. And staying in West Belfast, we move over to the Loyalist Shankill in this film, a community only metres from the falls. And in another film, a journey along the other side of the Peace Wall. And then I look at the unfortunate claim to fame of one of Belfast's most famous hotels. The Europa Hotel was bombed 36 times during the Troubles. And I also have a film looking at the phenomenon of flying flags in areas where the residents don't want them. I look at a few communities scarred by violence, This is Belfast's Loyalist village area, an area becoming increasingly diverse with new arrivals to the city. Not far from the village is Loyalist Sandy Row, which is right in the centre of town. I also looked at the modern history of Short Strand, a Catholic enclave surrounded on all sides and with its own peace wall. And I visited the Lower Ormo, historically a flashpoint during the Loyalist marching season. And this bridge was the infamous location of the annual standoff. And in the midst of all this is the student area known as the Holy Lands. It sits adjacent to the Queen's University, but it's not without its own issues. The Republican murals of Lower Falls were recently overpainted, with murals supporting Palestine and against the war in Gaza. And finally, I looked at the terrible tragedy of the Dublin and Monaghan bombs, and how security forces collusion is considered to have played a part. These were sad times, still hard to talk about, but people are genuinely interested, and so I hope these films are useful. And after that, it's perhaps nice to talk about building bridges. And we start with this amazing bridge which snakes across the River Foyle. It is of course Derry's Peace Bridge. It was opened in 2011 by First Ministers Peter Robinson and Martin McGuinness, and Irish Taoiseach Enda Kenny. This bridge over Dublin's Liffey is instantly recognisable as the Happiny Bridge. It's become a symbol synonymous with the city now. And for a more courageous crossing, you could try this Carrick-a-Reed rope bridge at County Antrim. And yes, I am going to cross it, camera and all. And this harp-like structure, Ireland's national symbol is the harp, is the Samuel Beckett Bridge, named after our Nobel Prize winning author. And finally, okay, this isn't a bridge, it's the Dublin Port Tunnel, but it's impressive, a 4.5 kilometre twin tunnel system running under the heart of central Dublin. Time to get above ground now again, I think. This film looks at the amazing Belfast City Hall, all covered in a beautiful light dusting of snow. And I look at some of the marvellous buildings that surround it as well. The GPO in Dublin's O'Connell Street was the birthplace of the Irish Republic, and the scene of such tremendous violence in Easter of 1916. And then this place came into existence after partition as the seat of the new state of Northern Ireland. And just tucked in behind those buildings is the old Bank of Ireland premises, a magnificent piece of modern architecture in Dame Street in central Dublin. And on the subject of buildings, we have some amazing religious buildings in Ireland too, like Clonard Cathedral in West Belfast, with its associated monastery. Actually, this place played an important part in the brokering of the peace agreement. Then we have the ostentatious Galway Cathedral, a modern building visible on the skyline from all over the city. And Christchurch Cathedral at the top of Dublin's Dame Street is well worth a visit, even if it's only to see the tomb of the Anglo-Norman Strongbow. St Nicholas Church in Galway is very interesting in that it hosted no other than Christopher Columbus on his way to the Americas. And the imposing St Patrick's Roman Catholic Cathedral in Armagh is the seat of the Archbishop of Armagh and Primate of all Ireland. Consequently, it's magnificent inside and with an amazing statue of the persecuted St Oliver Plunkett. In Belfast, St Anne's Cathedral sits on Donegal Street with its 40-metre stainless steel spire and beautiful copper doors. Inside it has a surprising amount of flags and emblems. And then there's beautiful St Finbarr's Cathedral in Cork. It has some of the most beautiful detail in a 19th century cathedral. Just look at these doorways and their carvings. So from churches to graves. This place, Drumcliff Church in County Sligo, is the final resting place of the great W.B. Yeats, a poet who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. The epitaph reads, "Cast a cold eye on life, on death, horsemen pass by." And the Garden of Remembrance in Parnell Square, Dublin. Well, I know it isn't strictly speaking a grave, but I thought I'd include it here. It has the most amazing sculpture depicting the mythical children of Lear, and it's worth visiting for that alone. It was created by the sculptor Oisin Kelly and is made of copper bronze. Even the rain can't extinguish its beauty here. The next grave I think is quite ordinary given the stature of its tenant. This is the great poet Seamus Heaney's grave in his homeland of Balachi. Again, Heaney was a Nobel Prize winner. You've got to admit that the Irish can write. The epitaph here is from one of his poems, "Walk on air against your better judgment." Now the glamour of this next grave is something shocking. We've travelled all the way to Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris to view the grave of the great Oscar Wilde, and look at it there. It reflects completely the ostentatious life of the writer. And people love this grave, so much so that it's now had this plexiglass erected to protect it from people writing affectionate messages on it. Finally, and staying in Paris, we move cemeteries over to Montparnasse, which is the last resting place of the great Samuel Beckett. Now Beckett is adored by the French. He lived here after all. He wrote Waiting for Godot in French, and he fought in the French resistance. What a life. I think he liked a pint too, so that brings us nicely to our section on pubs. And we begin with the Duke of York in Belfast. It's a pub situated amid the nightlife of the Cathedral Quarter. It has a lovely atmosphere and it's very beautiful inside with its walls lined with mirrors. Then it's up to the wilds of Donegal's Gaeltacht region and the Hootie Bugs pub. I arrived here in the morning and it wasn't even open when I managed to blag my way in. This pub is very important for Irish music. Now this place, the Crown in Belfast, is, in my fairly expert opinion, the best pub in the world. It's incredibly beautiful, brilliantly and sensitively renovated by the National Trust who own it. Then it's off to Dublin and to my favourite pub there, Grogan's. It's just a little time capsule. This is what pubs used to be like years ago. And White's Tavern in Belfast is one of Belfast's oldest pubs. I happened to film it on St Patrick's Day. What a buzz. Another very old pub, the Brazen Head in Dublin again. This one is pretty touristy, but it's good for food and worth a visit. I'm bouncing back and forth between Belfast and Dublin now. This is Belfast's Kelly Cellars. Again, a place with a long history and frequented by the United Irishmen at the end of the 18th century. And if you like your pubs ornate and full of Victorian splendour, the Long Hall in Dublin is the place. Just check out the inside of this place. Beautiful. We go to Ballina next in County Mayo for a less opulent and more rural experience, but Rouse's pub doesn't disappoint. Don't miss this place if you're travelling in the west of Ireland. The Stag's Head in Dublin invites even before you get inside with its stunning lighting. But I should say that it's just as amazing on the inside as on the outside. And the International Bar is well known in South Dublin, sitting at the crossroads of Wicklow Street and William Street South. There's no frills inside, but it has some lovely Victorian features and a comedy club upstairs. And Keogh's Bar in Dublin's Ann Street is one of those little old bars with booths or snugs where you can squeeze in with a group of friends. Again in Dublin, O'Donoghue's in Marion Row is another important Irish music bar. In fact, it's reputed to be the pub where the Dubliners formed. It's a busy place in the evenings. And speaking of Irish music, over in the west of Ireland, in the town of Westport, there's the most famous music bar of all. It's owned by Matt Malloy, the flute player with the Chieftains, and it's a must visit if you want to hear some traditional Irish sessions. And there you go. In this film, I soberly visited James Toner's lovely old pub in Bagot Street in Dublin for a wee daytime pint. This is a favourite hangout for journalists as it's close to the Irish Parliament. But there's such great patina on the old fittings. Imagine sitting here and watching Dublin go by. While across the road we have Doheny and Nesbitt's lovely old pub. Again, another little time capsule in central Dublin. This is a pub with some gorgeous features, and of course, great pints of Guinness. And all this talk of pints has just reminded me of something. You can now buy me a pint, by way of donation to Naked Ireland. Believe me, every donation counts, and each is very welcome. Check out the link in the description below, it takes you straight to the donation page. Meanwhile, we're starting our journey around lakes, rivers and waterways at the impressive Lough Neagh, which is the largest lake either in Ireland or the UK. I also made a film on Galway's many waterways. It's such a watery city that I'm tempted to call it the Venice of Ireland. Some lovely shots here. I love the stillness and calm. And then there's this fantastic scene with the old boats on the banks of the Corrib. The Silent Valley Reservoir in County Down, tucked away in the Mourne Mountains and not far from the town of Newcastle, is a sublime place to get away from it all. The main reservoir supplies Belfast with its water, but the setting amongst these mountains is unbelievable. And this little waterfall in Glencar was a favourite of W.B. Yeats. Where the wandering water gushes from the hills above Glencar in pools among the rushes that scarce could be at the star. And even in cities, there's watery beauty to be found, as here in this film about the Grand Canal in South Dublin. It's almost rural when you're out of the city centre a bit. And then as you approach Leeson Street, you realise you're in the metropolis again. A good place for a jog, I guess. I've covered a few shopping streets that I'd like to share with you too. Starting in Grafton Street in Dublin, perhaps Ireland's most prestigious shopping street. It's home of Bewley's International Cafe, and I've made an entire film on that if you'd like to seek it out. But it's also famous for its street florists, and of course for Brown Thomas department store. And not far from Grafton Street is the Powers Court Shopping Centre. Again, there's some lovely shops here in what was once a very swanky townhouse. It's hard to imagine people living here. Then we're off to O'Connell Street, but not in Dublin, in Limerick. And again, that's Brown Thomas department store in front of us there. And here's a statue of Richard Harris, who not many people know was a son of Limerick. And O'Connell Street is also the home of the international rugby experience. As you know, rugby is a big thing in Ireland. In O'Connell Street in Dublin, we pass the posh Gresham Hotel. And this is also one of the places where you'll find your sightseeing buses. And of course, that's the famous GPO that I mentioned earlier. And there's the Lewis tram sweeping up the street. Turning now to city parks and squares, we start with the famous St Stephen's Green in South Dublin. This is an amazing park at all times of the year. You never know who you'd meet. And as I mentioned in my film, the park featured in the 1916 Rising. Here's a monument to the victims of the famine by sculptor Edward Delaney. And the Victorian bandstands and water features make this a really picturesque landscape. When you're in the middle of the park, you just wouldn't know you're in the city. The Ormeau Park in Belfast is vast. It's situated just on the east side of the Lagan River. It not only has beautiful woodland and therefore wildlife, but it has some great sporting facilities as well. Such a great place to walk to escape the hustle and bustle of the city. You'll probably recognise this very dapper Oscar Wilde sitting on this rock at the entrance to Dublin's Merrion Square. What's the connection, you ask? Well, Wilde lived right across the street from here. This park in South Dublin is not as decorative or pretty as its neighbour St Stephen's Green, but it has a lot of green open space and again offers a welcome break from the noise and traffic. It also has a number of other statues and memorials, including this one, which is a memorial to the Defence Forces. Galway's Eyre Square also has a number of interesting, let's call them sculptures. Watch the film to find out more. It also seems to have an inordinate number of young people, but then Galway is full of young people. It's an important university city, as I've already mentioned, so I guess that's one of the reasons for its young population. But this is a nice spacious square with a bit of grass to lie on in the summer. Now this is the park of all parks, the mighty Phoenix Park in Dublin. This place is so big that it's pretty impossible to get around it on foot, but you can hire bikes at the entrance, as I did when I made the video. This allowed me to visit some of the park's stunning features, like the Wellington Monument, which will definitely impress. And this lovely little tea room. In close proximity to Dublin Zoo. And these deer have nothing to do with the zoo. These animals roam wild in the parkland. They're amazingly tame. And this is where Michael D. Higgins, the current President of Ireland, lives. It's such a great park. The Pope even visited in 1979. Okay, now we're going to get arty and see some of the cultural stuff that you can do in Ireland. First up is my video of the National Concert Hall. This is a spectacular building that served as a university and even functioned for a short time as the country's parliament in the early days of the state. I think this chandelier is Waterford crystal, but I could be wrong. This is the main concert hall where the National Symphony and the concert orchestras play. And this is Belfast's Mac Theatre, the Metropolitan Arts Centre, a relatively new facility in the city, which has concert halls, galleries, workspaces, and this open foyer, restaurant and bar area. Check out my film in Dublin's National Gallery too, as I go into a bit of detail on some of the paintings you'll find there. But as you can see on entry, it's just a great place to hang out. And remember, admission to the permanent collections is free of charge. Now in Sligo town, I made a video of the Model Art Gallery. This is a fantastic development in what is after all a smallish town. The interior is very contemporary and in stark contrast to the outside look of the place, but it's a beautiful space. And there's some great artworks here as well. Back in Dublin, and I filmed my favourite gallery in Ireland, the Hugh Lane. It's in the most beautiful building, which hosts free concerts every Sunday. So you'll get to hear music amid this incredible architecture. It also hosts a collection of works by Irish artist Sean Scully. And of course it has the actual reconstructed Francis Bacon studio inside the gallery. Back in the north of Ireland, in the townland of Ballachy, we now have a museum devoted to the work of Nobel Prize winning poet Seamus Heaney. I can't emphasise enough how brilliant this place is, but I guess you really need to have some familiarity with Heaney's work. Or perhaps just an inquiring mind. The impressive building that houses the EMA Gallery in Dublin was once the Royal Hospital Kilmainham, a retirement home for elderly soldiers. It was based on Les Invalides in Paris. It's certainly a fine 17th century building, the finest in Ireland. EMA stands for the Irish Museum of Modern Art, and this is a place to come to see all that is on the cutting artistic edge in Ireland. Watch my film to find out more about the kind of exhibits you'll find here. And finally, there are a few other places that might interest you. Just work your way through the films and you'll find something that floats your boat. Like this weekly market in Belfast. This is St George's Market and it's the place to come for fresh food, but also gifts and souvenirs, all sorts of stuff really. And from that, to this Japanese garden that's in the grounds of the Irish National Stud in County Kildare. It's the last place perhaps you'd expect to find a Japanese garden, especially of this standard. But then, as I keep saying, Ireland isn't all shamrocks, shillelaghs and shenanigans. I got soaking wet making this film, so go and watch it. In the town of Bushmills in County Antrim, you'll find a distillery of the same name. It's a fascinating place and well worth a visit if you like a drop of the hard stuff. But check out my film before going there, you'll get a good feel for the place. Then you can go along and taste the finest Bushmills whisky. This place, over the years, was somewhere you didn't want to find yourself. It was the Crumlin Road Jail, and in its day played host to some notorious prisoners. It's now renovated as a museum and venue. What a great place to go and see a concert. I guess that's what you'd call a captive audience. The Victorians really built great buildings, even their jails were amazing. And finally, we finished this film, a film advertising 200 other films, with a trip to the Botanic Gardens in Belfast. Again, this is a great place to visit, but the whole point of these videos is so that you can see these places from the comfort of your own armchair. I mean, by all means, come along and visit them for real. But if you live at the other end of the country, or in the US or Australia, then perhaps it's not an option. So I hope these films are of some use to you all. If so, please subscribe, seek out all these videos, watch them, like them, comment on them, and I'll see you all very soon for the 201 edition of Naked Ireland. And need I remind you, don't forget that you can now donate if you're in a position to. Info is in the description below.